Okay, this is a video demonstrating the Soladoodle 2 with a Panelolu add-on, which is an LCD screen, rotary encoder, and SD card reader. First thing to mention is that it doesn't actually have an SD card, it has a micro SD card slot, which is the little one. So when you buy one, make sure you get one with an adapter, so you can plug this into a laptop or card reader, and then you put on straight G-code files, no need to convert to any other formats, and then plug it into the Panelolu up here. Okay, on our main screen we have several layers of information. We have our extruder up the top left, our temperature. We have the bed temperature on the top right. We have our Z height, what it's currently set to. We have our speed, which is 100%. We have our percentage of the print done for when printing off an SD card, and then we've got our last line, which at the moment says Soladoodle ready, from a few firmware tweaks. Going through the menus, first we have our prepare menu, auto start, not sure what that does, can't get it to do anything. Turning off the stepper motors, homing all three axes. Set the origin to the current position. Preheat for PLA or ABS, and the temperature values for the extruder and bed can be set in the firmware. Cooldown, which just kills any temperature commands. Now we have our control menu. Under temperature, we can set manually our target temperature for the bed or the nozzle to heat up to. Fan speed, which won't work for the Soladoodle since it doesn't have one. Then we have some PID settings, which are for the algorithm that runs the extruder temperature, which you can change here. Back to our motion menu, and we have a whole bunch of values from the firmware, which we can fine tune in here without having to reflash the firmware. So for example, if you were calibrating one of your stepper motors and you wanted to change your extruder steps, I've already calibrated mine to 115. I think it started something like 130. You could come to here and you could set it here without having to reflash the firmware, and those changes will stay with it. To make sure they stay with it even after you turn the power off, we have the store memory setting here, which will flash the current settings to the EEPROM on the electronics board. We have a load from there, and then we also have a restore failsafe, which will load back all the values that are hard-coded into the firmware. Last option is our card menu, and it doesn't seem to want to... There we go. Okay, so it will list all the G-code files on the card. Funnily enough, when you update and put the SD card back in, sometimes you need to go to refresh. It doesn't seem to actually scan the card again until you've been to that. So we'll do a test print here. This is a print for a tiny little calibration piece that I've printed probably about 30 of over and over. Because I've preheated the bed, this should happen quite quickly to speed up this video. And you can see in the top left hand side the extruder is heating up. So now this line will keep track of the elapsed time for the print, and you'll see the Z height update. I've got it set to 0.25 of a millimeter layer, so it's going to go up by 0.25 each layer. The speed I'll demonstrate in a moment. Percentage of the SD cards is going to go up really quickly because this is only a 3-4 minute print, and our bottom line is giving us feedback. So the bed is heated, and now it's telling us that it's heating the extruder, which will happen very quickly because I had it already set to be quite warm. Okay, the next thing you'll see as it goes through the layers is the result of a post-processing script that I've put together for Slicer. There's an option in Slicer where you can set it to add in some G-code every time the layer changes. Another thing that we work with is the M117 command, which is display some sort of message on the screen. So the post-processing script goes through and looks for any layer changes, and then we'll count them and say the current layer, layer 1 of 12, and so forth. Without that script, this bottom bit will just remain on heating done. Okay, so when we're on our main screen, changing the dial changes the speed of the print. You should hear the stepper motors go a lot faster after that. This is really handy if you are manually attending a print, because some sections might be doing infill on one of the inner layers. It doesn't really matter how it looks, you really want to speed it up, so you can just temporarily turn it up and you hear the changes taking effect. Other times you might get to a really tricky bit where you want fine detail and you want it to slow down, so you can wind it back down to print at that percentage. Okay, the last thing to talk about while this print finishes is the mounting option here. This file has been posted to Thingiverse. It's a 3-part design. We have an adapter piece that uses the existing holes on the back of the Panelolu case to mount on, and on Thingiverse I've posted 2 options for that. This one will turn this section 90 degrees to mount it on the side of the unit. We have a locking pin which slots in the middle, and then we have this magnetic base that takes half inch by half inch cylinder magnets, and that's quite a tidy option. There's no other real nice way to mount this thing. You can see the percentage updating, the Z height updating, and then the custom G-code messages coming through here. So overall, really nice addition to the Soladoodle. Nice to leave long prints going overnight without needing to need the computer on, or during the day when you perhaps go to work and need to take your computer with you. And really nice to have that information displayed up on the screen.